Genesis chapter 6, verse 17. In the prior few verses, God has given Noah some instructions about this ark he is to build. Now we're going to find out more about why it's going to matter insofar as the plan God has for judgment. Let's begin. Ego de idu epago, ton cataclysmon, hudor epitain gain, kataptherai pasan sarka. And then we'll finish with the second half of the verse here in a minute. We begin with this ego de idu here. The Masoretic gives us va'ani hineni, and so assuming that was the source of the Genesis translator, it's a nice isomorphic, let me write that, translation there, where it's picking up on the and, the I, and the behold. Very nice rendering there. So drawing attention to God's intentions here. Then epago here, that's just a standard first singular present active indicative, pretty easy. Epago means to bring upon, and what's he going to bring? Ton cataclysmon, that means flood or deluge. Of course, that's where we get our cataclysm from in English, which is a bit of a broader term. And I do find that the next line here, and the reason why I've tabbed it in, I think this is true, by the way, in the Hebrew, is essentially appositional. It's defining further what a cataclysmon is. So what is a cataclysm? It's water upon the earth. And that's the specific cataclysm that he is going to bring. And then what's the purpose? Kataptherai. We've seen this verb before, like in 6:13. You can go look at that video. This is an aorist active infinitive. I would say it's a purpose infinitive. It's why is he bringing the water upon the earth? And it means to ruin or to destroy, as we've seen. And he's going to destroy pasan sarka. And so there is a lot of debate, of course, in the modern day about the scope of the flood, but at least from the translator perspective, it is essentially a global cataclysm. It's upon all the earth, and it's going to destroy all flesh. Now let's move on to the next part of the verse. In he estin pneumazoes hypokato tu uranu, ke hasa eon epites geis telutesai. Let's go through the bits and pieces here. We start with this prepositional phrase, which is referring back to the sarx in the earlier part of the verse here. That's why this relative pronoun here is feminine. So in which there is, that's how you would take that. So notice it's dative because of the N. That forces it to be dative. Pneuma zoes, the spirit of life. Now this is a callback to Genesis, but back in Genesis 2, the translator chose Noe zoes. Noe here is more like the typical term for breath, whereas pneuma is more like either wind or the actual, third person of the triune God. One manuscript of Genesis actually, in this particular spot, does have Noe there. Probably recognizing that there is this connection back to Genesis 2:7. So as we've seen multiple times already, and we'll continue to see, there is a Genesis 1 and 2 background to what's happening with the flood. This reiterates that for us. So in which there is the spirit of life or the breath of life beneath the heaven. So hupokato means beneath the heaven. And then now we have the final sort of declaration of what the impact of this cataclysmos is going to be. So and hasa eon a. So hasas here means as much as many as, and then aeon here is going to take the subjunctive. This, even though it kind of looks like the A here, notice the different breathing mark. Otherwise, it's the same diacritics and so forth. This is the third singular present active subjunctive of me, because aeon is going to take the subjunctive. So whatever is upon the earth, in effect. So whatever may be, and then this is the to be verb, upon the earth. Lastly, telutesai. This is from telutao, a third singular future active indicative. That does mean to die, but it's the unusual choice. You're used to apothnesko, perhaps. And perhaps the reason why the translator picked something that is a little bit out of left field is that the Hebrew here is also a bit different. You typically expect mut or something like that in Hebrew. It's goah here, and that is often translated elsewhere in the Masoretic, at least in English Bibles, as to breathe one's last. It is a word for dying, but it's not the kind of typical word. But either way, kind of interesting thing going on there, whereby everything that is upon the earth will die, or breathe their last, if you will. Now, let's just make a connection for us in the New Testament here. Luke 17:27 recalls the situation with Noah, and even though I don't think it's a direct citation to Genesis 6:17, I think it is picking up on the language here. So Jesus says they were eating and drinking until the day when Noah entered the ark, so that's coming soon. Notice kipoton here. We've seen that in Genesis 6 as well. And the flood, here's our cataclysmon. The flood came and destroyed them all. Notice the use of pos as we saw here. Now, this is a different word for destruction. We saw kataphtheri, it's like ruin or overall destroy, apolumi here. Probably a more common word there, but I think the basic concept of Genesis 6:17 is behind Jesus' words, plus really maybe some other bits of Genesis. So it's drawing on the whole scene here, but I thought I would point out some of the lexical connections. And so at this point, Noah's going to build an ark. Everyone's just going to kind of keep going about their business. And Jesus says, yeah, that was true until the flood came. And so we'll see that play out as we go forward in the Genesis narrative.